You know that feeling when everyone comes to you with their problems. When you can sense the shift in energy the moment someone walks into a room. When you absorb every emotion like your nervous system is a sponge with no off switch. You're an empath. And right now you're probably wondering if something is deeply, fundamentally wrong with you. Because lately you've been having thoughts that terrify you. Thoughts that contradict everything you believe about who you are. That rage that bubbles up when someone needs just one more thing from you. That cold satisfaction when someone who hurt you finally gets what's coming to them. That growing desire to just stop caring about anyone or anything. You hate yourself for these feelings, but here's what's more frightening. They're getting stronger, aren't they? Let me tell you something that might save your soul. What you're experiencing isn't a moral failure. It's not a character flaw. It's not evidence that you're becoming a bad person. What's happening to you right now is one of the most profound psychological transformations a human being can undergo. And it was predicted over a century ago by a man who understood the hidden architecture of the human psyche better than almost anyone who came before or after. You're not losing your empathy. You're meeting your shadow. And that meeting, as terrifying as it feels, might be exactly what you need to become whole. Think about the last time you felt genuinely peaceful. Not the performance of calm you put on for others. Not the exhausted numbness you mistake for serenity. But actual bone-deep peace. You can't remember, can you? Because for years, maybe your entire life, you've been everyone's emotional sanctuary. Your mother calls to process her marriage. Your friends text at midnight with their crises. Your colleagues corner you to download their stress. And you sit there, absorbing it, all feeling it, all carrying it all. Here's what nobody tells you about empathy. Your nervous system was never designed to process the emotional waste of an entire community. Every time you take on someone else's anxiety, their grief, their rage, their despair, you're not just witnessing it. You're storing it. In your body, in your psyche, in the deep underground rivers of your unconscious mind. And there's only so much emotional sediment a soul can hold before something has to give. The ancient wisdom speaks of this with stunning clarity. Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. You've been carrying not just your own shadow, but everyone else's. You've become a psychic landfill. And now the toxicity is seeping up through the cracks. What you call becoming a monster is actually your psyche's desperate attempt to restore balance. Because here's the truth about psychological systems: they self-regulate. When one function dominates too strongly, the psyche must compensate. You've been operating purely from the feeling function, from empathy, from endless giving. Your shadow, the part of you that's selfish, boundaried, even cruel, has been starving. And starved things eventually eat whatever they can find. This is the beginning of what depth psychology calls individuation. Not the pretty Instagram spiritual version. The real thing. The descent into your own darkness to retrieve the parts of yourself you've been too afraid to claim. You're about to discover that the monster and the empath aren't opposites. They're dance partners. And the music has finally started. Before we dive deeper, if this resonates with your soul's journey, please hit that like button and subscribe for more transformational content. Your support helps this message reach other souls who need to hear it. Let's talk about who you think you are versus who you actually are. Because the gap between these two things is where your monster lives. You've built an identity around being the helper, the healer, the one who understands, the emotional caretaker. This is what depth psychology calls the persona, the mask you wear to meet the world's expectations. And you've worn this mask so long, you've forgotten it's a mask at all. You think this is you, the kind one, the compassionate one, the one who always has capacity for one more person's pain. But here's the thing about personas, they're always incomplete. Everything that doesn't fit the mask gets pushed into the basement of your psyche. All your anger, your selfishness, your capacity for cruelty, your desire to be taken care of instead of always taking care of others, your need to be seen, to be chosen, to matter. These don't fit the selfless empath narrative, so down they go, into the shadow. And shadows have a tendency to grow in the dark. Every time you swallow your anger to keep the peace, your shadow gets stronger. Every time you ignore your own needs to meet someone else's, your shadow gets hungrier. Every time you smile through exhaustion because you're supposed to be understanding, your shadow sharpens its teeth. The shadow isn't evil. It's not demonic. It's not evidence of moral corruption. The shadow is simply the collection of everything you've decided is unacceptable about yourself. And for empaths, that collection is vast. Because you've been taught explicitly or implicitly that having needs makes you selfish. That setting boundaries makes you mean. That feeling anger makes you unsafe. That prioritizing yourself makes you narcissistic. So you've repressed all of it. Decades of denied aggression, lifetimes of unspoken resentment, oceans of unexpressed rage. And you thought you could keep it down there forever. You thought you were strong enough to transcend your shadow through sheer force of compassion. But there's an old truth that never stops being true. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. You've been avoiding your soul, and now your soul is coming for you whether you're ready or not. Here's what happens when an empath's shadow finally breaks free. First comes the inflation. You don't realize it's happening, but for years, you've been identifying with the healer archetype so strongly that you've elevated yourself. Not consciously. You'd never admit it out loud. But deep in your unconscious, there's a belief that you're more evolved than others. More spiritual, more aware, more capable of love. You're the one who understands what others can't. You're the one who feels what others won't. You're special. This is psychic inflation, when you identify too strongly with an archetype and start to believe you are that archetype rather than a human being playing that role. And inflation always leads to deflation. The psyche cannot sustain imbalance. What goes up must come down. And when it does, the fall is brutal. The deflation arrives the moment you can't do it anymore. The moment someone needs you and you feel nothing but resentment. The moment you realize you've been performing empathy while dying inside. The moment you understand that all your helping was actually a desperate bid to be loved, to be needed, to matter. That's when the persona cracks. That's when the shadow floods through. And suddenly, you're not the kind one anymore. You're cold. You're calculating. You're aware of everyone's weakness and disgusted by their dependence. You see manipulation everywhere. Because you're finally seeing the manipulation you've been enacting, using your empathy as currency to earn love you didn't believe you deserved freely. This is the enantiodromia, the principle that everything eventually turns into its opposite. The giver becomes the taker. The healer becomes the wounder. The empath becomes the very thing they dedicated their lives to protecting others from. And you look at yourself in this moment and you're terrified. Because you don't recognize who's looking back. But here's what you need to understand. This isn't corruption. This is compensation. The psyche is trying to restore balance through the only method available to it, by swinging violently in the opposite direction. You haven't been infected by darkness. You've been starving your darkness, and now it's demanding to be fed. Nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their environment, and especially on their children, than the unlived life of the parent. This was written about literal parents, but it applies to you in a different way. You've been living everyone else's unlived emotions. processing their grief because they won't, holding their anger because they can't, carrying their fear because they refuse to. You've spent so much time living other people's unlived lives that you haven't lived your own. And your unlived life, your denied needs, your suppressed anger, your unexpressed desire, that's what's rising up now. The monster phase isn't evil entering you. It's you finally desperately trying to enter your own life. Every cold thought is your psyche trying to establish boundaries. Every cruel impulse is your anger finally demanding to be heard. Every selfish desire is your soul saying, "What about me? What about my needs? What about my pain?" You're not becoming a monster. You're becoming conscious. And consciousness, especially at first, is violent. It's disorienting. It feels like dying. Because in a way, you are dying. The persona is shattering. The mask is cracking. The carefully constructed identity of the selfless empath is revealing itself to be exactly what it always was, a defense mechanism. A strategy for earning love. A way to matter in a world that felt overwhelming and unpredictable. Now comes the dangerous part. Because awareness isn't the same as integration. You can see your shadow without knowing what to do with it. And most empaths, when they first meet their shadow, make one of two mistakes. Either they try to push it back down to return to the good person they were before, or they identify with the shadow completely and become the monster they feared. Neither path leads to healing. One leads to another inevitable eruption. The other leads to possession when the shadow takes over entirely, and you lose access to the empathic capacity that was genuine in you. The real work, the work that transforms rather than destroys, is integration. Bringing the shadow to the table. Learning to hold both the light and the dark. Becoming whole instead of fractured. This is the threshold where most people turn back. Because integration requires something terrifying, accepting that you are capable of cruelty, that you contain darkness, that the monster isn't foreign, it's you. And that acceptance feels like moral suicide. But the old wisdom says, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The latter procedure, however, is disagreeable and therefore not popular. You're at the threshold. The question is, will you turn back to the familiar prison of your persona, or will you walk forward into the unknown territory of your wholeness? Let's go deeper into the darkness. Because if you're going to heal from this, you need to understand exactly what's happening when the empath becomes the monster. You need to see the mechanism, the progression, the point of no return, and how to find your way back. The transformation happens in stages. First comes energetic bankruptcy. You wake up one day and there's just nothing. No compassion, no concern, no capacity. Someone tells you about their problem, and instead of the automatic empathy that used to flood through you, you feel cold assessment, mild irritation, secret contempt. You look at their pain, and your first thought isn't, "How can I help?" It's, "Why should I care?" This terrifies you at first. You try to manufacture the feelings you're supposed to have. You perform empathy going through the motions while feeling nothing inside. But the performance exhausts you more than genuine caring ever did. Because you're not just dealing with their emotions anymore, you're also managing your guilt about not feeling what you think you should feel. Then comes the freeze. Your nervous system, overwhelmed by decades of emotional overload, simply shuts down. This isn't a choice you make. It's a biological response to sustained trauma. Complex PTSD doesn't just come from single events. It comes from chronic emotional overwhelm without adequate support or recovery time. Your body enters a state of tonic immobility, the freeze response that happens when fight or flight isn't possible. But here's where it gets complicated for empaths. The freeze doesn't look like trauma. It looks like coldness. It looks like you've become mean, detached, uncaring. People say you've changed. They say you're not yourself. They want the old you back, the you that had infinite capacity for their needs. And their pressure to return to who you were only pushes you deeper into the freeze. Because they don't understand what you know viscerally now. The old you was killing you. The boundless empath was a slow suicide. And your psyche in its wisdom chose to freeze rather than die. But the freeze isn't the end of the transformation. It's the middle. Because from the frozen state comes the inversion, the moment your empathy weaponizes. This is when things get truly dangerous. Because you still have all your empathic abilities. Your capacity to read people, to understand their fears, to see their vulnerabilities, it's all still there. But now, instead of using it to heal, you use it to harm. Not always overtly. Sometimes it's subtle. A perfectly aimed comment that hits someone's deepest insecurity. A strategic withdrawal of support at someone's moment of need. A cold truth delivered at exactly the wrong time. You know where to strike because you absorbed all their wounds over the years. You filed away every secret shame, every hidden fear, every tender spot. And now you have the nuclear codes to their psyche. The temptation to use this power is overwhelming. Because finally, they can feel a fraction of the pain you've been carrying for them. Finally, they're the ones struggling with emotions instead of dumping them on you. There's a sick satisfaction in it. Not because you're evil, but because you're exhausted. Because you've been drowning in everyone else's emotions for so long that watching them struggle with their own feelings feels like justice. This is the monster phase in full bloom. And the truly terrifying thing, part of you enjoys it. You start keeping score. You remember every slight, every time someone took advantage of your kindness, every moment of unrequited care. Your empathy becomes a database of weakness, and you feel powerful in a way you've never felt before. The old wisdom speaks to this. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. You've been having chemical reactions with everyone you've ever absorbed emotion from. And the reaction has finally reached critical mass. You've been transformed. But not into something higher, into something harder. Some empaths at this stage become overtly aggressive. They use their emotional intelligence to manipulate, to control, to dominate. They become the narcissists they once attracted using the same tactics that were used against them. If you can't beat them, become them. If the world is full of users, you might as well be one too. Others become passive-aggressive, smiling, while sabotaging, agreeing, while undermining, seeming helpful, while being secretly destructive. They've learned that direct confrontation is too risky, so they fight in the shadows. This is often the path of empaths who were punished for direct anger in childhood. The rage finds covert channels. Still others become emotional vampires themselves. They create drama to feed off others' energy. They manufacture crises to feel alive. They've learned that if they can't find peace, nobody else should have it either. Misery loves company, and after years of being a receptacle for misery, they finally become its source. But the most common transformation is into what I call the ghost empath. Present but not living. Going through motions while feeling nothing. Relationships become performances. Conversations become transactions. Every interaction is calculated for minimal energy expenditure. You've mastered the art of looking engaged while being completely absent. You're there, but not there. Alive, but not living. The isolation that comes with this phase is profound. But it's not the healthy boundaries kind of isolation. It's not conscious solitude. It's a complete withdrawal from humanity. You start to see people not as individuals, but as emotional threats. Everyone becomes a potential drain on your depleted resources. Every relationship is suspect. Every offer of connection feels like a trap. The cynicism settles in like ash after a fire. You stop believing in the goodness of people because you've seen too much of their ugliness. You've absorbed their jealousy, their pettiness, their selfishness. You've felt their cruelty even when they smiled at you. You know what they really think, what they really feel, what they really want. And once you see that clearly without the rose-colored glasses of empathic compassion, humanity looks pretty ugly. But here's the crucial thing to understand this cynicism, this coldness, this weaponized empathy. It's not who you are. It's not your true nature emerging. It's trauma. It's your psyche's emergency response to sustained violation of your boundaries. It's what happens when a sensitive soul has been overwhelmed by an insensitive world for too long without adequate protection or support. In each of us, there is another whom we do not know. He speaks to us in dreams and tells us how differently he sees us from the way we see ourselves. The monster is your unknown other. The part of you that's been speaking in dreams, in flashes of rage, in moments of shocking coldness, trying to tell you that the way you've been living isn't sustainable. The monster is the messenger. The message is, you need boundaries, you need protection, you need to include yourself in your own compassion. But most empaths don't receive the message. They identify with the messenger. They become the monster instead of listening to what the monster is trying to say. And that's when temporary adaptation becomes permanent pathology. That's when protection becomes possession. Shadow possession happens when you stop recognizing yourself entirely, when the cold thoughts aren't occasional anymore, they're constant. When cruelty stops shocking you and starts feeling normal. When you look back at the person you used to be and feel contempt for their softness, their vulnerability, their care. The shadow hasn't just emerged. It's taken over completely. This is the point of maximum danger. Because shadow possession doesn't feel like possession. It feels like finally being realistic. Finally being smart. Finally protecting yourself. The monster doesn't announce itself as a monster. It announces itself as the truth you were too naive to see before. It tells you that everyone is selfish, so you should be too. That the world is cruel, so you'd better be crueler. That empathy is weakness and coldness is strength. And if you believe it, if you identify with the shadow completely, you lose access to the genuine gifts you had. The real empathy, the authentic compassion, the capacity for deep connection. These don't disappear because they were fake. They disappear because you've locked them in the same basement where your shadow used to live. You've completed the reversal, and reversals, when taken to extremes, are just new prisons. The transformation from empath to monster isn't random. It's not spiritual warfare. It's not evidence of weakness. It's the psyche's attempt, however clumsy, however painful, to restore balance, to protect a sensitive soul that couldn't protect itself, to enforce boundaries that were never learned, to demand consideration for a self that was constantly sacrificed. The monster is your psyche's alarm system, and it's screaming. The question is, are you listening to the alarm or becoming it? Now we come to the most important part of this journey. Because understanding what happened to you doesn't automatically heal you. Seeing your shadow doesn't integrate it. Knowing you're in the monster phase doesn't get you out of it. What we need now is a map, a practical path from fragmentation to wholeness, from shadow possession to conscious integration. This is where Carl Jung empath and personal development intersects with real, lived transformation. Let's start with what integration actually means. Because there's a lot of spiritual bypassing around this concept. People who think integration means you acknowledge your shadow and then go back to being good. That's not integration. That's just repression with awareness. Real integration means creating a new self that contains both the empath and the monster. Not choosing one, not suppressing one, holding both. This is what depth psychology calls the transcendent function and the psyche's ability to create a third position from the tension between opposites. The empath wants to give endlessly. The monster wants to take ruthlessly. The transcendent function creates the conscious feeler, someone who can give without depleting, receive without guilt, set boundaries without cruelty, feel deeply without drowning. But getting to the transcendent function requires walking through the fire. It requires feeling the full force of both energies without identifying with either. This is the work of individuation, becoming who you truly are, rather than who you were taught to be or who you've reacted against. Here's the process broken down into stages you can actually work with. Stage 1 is recognition. This is where most people get stuck because recognition requires radical honesty. You have to look in the mirror and say, I am both the empath and the monster. Both capacities live in me. The kindness was real. The cruelty is real. The compassion was genuine. The coldness is genuine. I am not one or the other. I am both. This feels like moral suicide, because we're trained to think in binaries: good or bad kind, or cruel, empathic, or monstrous. Holding both feels impossible, but it's not. It's actually the only honest position. Try this: write a letter from your empath self to your monster self. Let the empath speak to the monster without judgment. What does the empath want the monster to understand? Then write a letter back from the monster to the empath. What does the monster want the empath to know? Most people discover something surprising in this exercise. The monster and the empath actually want the same thing. They want safety. They want to matter. They want reciprocal love. They're just using opposite strategies to get it. Stage 2 is dialogue. Once you've recognized that both voices are yours, you need to let them talk to each other. This is active imagination, a practice where you allow different parts of your psyche to have conversations. It sounds strange, but it's incredibly powerful, because usually these voices are in conflict, shouting over each other. The empath says, we need to be kind. The monster says, we need to be safe. And you're caught in the middle, paralyzed by their competing demands. But when you let them actually speak to each other, something shifts. The empath realizes the monster has valid concerns. The monster realizes the empath has genuine gifts. They start to see each other not as enemies, but as protectors using different methods. They start to collaborate instead of war. Here's what this might look like. The empath says, I'm afraid if we have boundaries, we'll be alone. The monster responds, I'm afraid if we don't have boundaries, we'll cease to exist. Now you're getting somewhere. Because both fears are real. Both need to be addressed. The solution isn't choosing one fear over the other. It's creating boundaries that protect you without isolating you. It's staying connected without being consumed. Stage 3 is where the real magic happens, integration through action. Because you can have all the insight in the world, but until you act differently, nothing changes. Integration requires practicing new behaviors that honor both the empath and the monster. This means learning conscious empathy, engaging your empathic abilities by choice rather than by default. Here's a practical framework. Before you engage empathically with anyone, ask yourself 3 questions. First, is this feeling mine? If you're absorbing someone else's anxiety, name it. This is not my anxiety. I'm sensing their anxiety. I can acknowledge it without taking it on. Second, do I have capacity for this? If you're depleted, you don't. And saying no isn't cruelty, it's honesty. Third, is this helping them or enabling them? Sometimes your empathy actually prevents people from developing their own emotional resilience. Your compassion can be a crutch that keeps them dependent. These questions create what I call empowered empathy. Empathy that includes yourself. Empathy that considers your capacity. Empathy that serves rather than sacrifices. This is the gift on the other side of the monster phase. You learn that you can care without carrying, that you can witness someone's pain without making it your own, that you can be compassionate without being consumed. Boundaries become the physical manifestation of integration. But these aren't the rigid walls the monster wants. They're not the absent boundaries the empath defaults to. They're conscious containers, clear edges that define where you end and others begin. I can listen for 20 minutes, then I need to rest. I can support you through this, but I can't solve it for you. I love you, and I can't be your therapist. These statements feel revolutionary for empaths, because you've been taught that love means unlimited availability, that compassion means sacrificing yourself, that boundaries are selfish. But the integrated self knows better. Love with boundaries is sustainable. Compassion with limits is real. Boundaries aren't selfishness, they're responsibility. They're how you protect your gifts so you can keep giving them. And here's what most people don't understand about boundaries: they're not just for your protection, they're also a gift to others. When you have clear boundaries, people know where they stand with you. Boundaries create safety for everyone, not just you. They allow relationships to be honest instead of performative. They permit genuine connection because there's no hidden resentment building beneath the surface. The relationships that were built on your boundless empathy will likely end during this phase. And that's painful, but it's also clarifying, because those relationships were never about you. They were about what you could provide. The people who love you, truly love you, will celebrate your boundaries, even when those boundaries inconvenience them. They'll be happy to see you protecting yourself. They'll support your healing, even if it means you're less available to them. This is how you discover who was really there for you versus who was there for what you could do for them. And yes, some people you love deeply will fail this test. That grief is real. Honor it. But don't let it convince you to abandon your boundaries. Because going back to boundless empathy isn't love, it's self-destruction. And self-destruction doesn't serve anyone, least of all the people who genuinely care about you. As you practice conscious empathy and maintain boundaries, something remarkable happens. You start to feel again, but differently. The overwhelming flood of emotions that used to crash through you becomes more like a river you can navigate. You feel deeply, but you're not drowning. You care greatly, but you're not depleting. You help others, but not at your own expense. This is conscious feeling. Empathy that's chosen rather than compulsive. Compassion that's directed rather than diffuse. Your nervous system starts to heal. The chronic activation that kept you in fight-flight-freeze begins to regulate. You develop what trauma therapists call a window of tolerance, the zone where you can experience emotions without being overwhelmed by them. This window was almost non-existent when you were in boundless empath mode. It collapsed completely in the monster phase. Now with integration, it's expanding. You can handle more because you're not trying to handle everything. Understanding your nervous system is crucial here. For years, you've been operating in chronic hyperarousal, constantly scanning for others' emotional states, always ready to respond to someone else's needs. This isn't just mentally exhausting, it's physiologically damaging. The monster phase was your nervous system's collapse. Integration means learning to regulate your nervous system consciously. The practical tools for this work are simple, but not easy. Daily check-ins. What energy is mine to carry today? Morning protection practices, visualizing boundaries, setting intentions for conscious engagement. Evening release rituals, letting go of anything you absorbed that isn't yours. Regular solitude for nervous system reset, not isolation, but chosen time alone to recalibrate. Nature time to remember you're part of a larger system that doesn't demand anything from you. These practices might seem small, but they're revolutionary for empaths. Because you've spent your whole life oriented toward others, these practices orient you toward yourself. They remind you that you matter, that your energy is precious, that protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's sacred. The journey of Carl Jung, empath, and personal development teaches us that wholeness isn't perfection. It's not finally becoming so evolved that you never feel shadow emotions. Wholeness is having conscious access to all of yourself, the light and the dark, the empathy and the boundaries, the compassion and the discernment. It's being able to choose which aspect to engage based on what the situation requires, rather than being possessed by one and terrified of the other. Integration looks like this. You can feel someone's pain without absorbing it. You can witness their struggle without fixing it. You can offer support without becoming responsible. You can love deeply without losing yourself. You can be present without being consumed. You can say no without guilt. You can set boundaries without cruelty. You can be soft and strong simultaneously. This is the transcendent function in action. This is wholeness. So what does life look like on the other side of integration? What happens when the empath and the monster finally make peace? This is the transformation, not back to who you were, but forward into who you're becoming. And it's more powerful than you can imagine from where you're standing now. The integrated empath is something the world desperately needs. Because the old model of empathy, boundless self-sacrificing, always available, isn't actually helpful. It creates dependency in others and depletion in yourself. It enables rather than empowers. It sacrifices rather than serves. The world doesn't need more martyrs. It needs more whole humans who can feel without fracturing. Let me be clear about something: the world will resist your integration. Society benefits from empaths who give endlessly without regard for their own well-being. Families depend on the one person who will always absorb everyone's pain. Workplaces exploit the employee who can't say no. Friendships become parasitic when one person is always the giver. Your boundlessness was convenient for everyone else. Your wholeness will be threatening. Some people will try to guilt you back into old patterns. They'll say you've become selfish, cold, different. They'll weaponize your empathy against you. The old you would have understood. I guess you don't care anymore. You've changed, and not for the better. Let them say it. Their discomfort with your boundaries is not your problem to fix. Their disappointment in your wholeness is not your responsibility to manage. You're not here to make everyone comfortable with your transformation. You're here to complete it. Here's what changes after integration. Empathy stops being your identity and becomes a tool. You no longer define yourself as an empath. You recognize that empathy is a capacity you have, not who you are. This distinction is crucial. When empathy is your identity, you feel obligated to use it constantly. When it's a capacity, you can choose when and how to engage it. You're not betraying yourself by having boundaries. You're honoring the full spectrum of your humanity. Compassion expands to include yourself. This might be the most radical shift. For most of your life, you extended compassion to everyone except yourself. You held space for others' pain while dismissing your own. You validated others' feelings while minimizing yours. But integrated compassion flows in all directions, outward toward others and inward toward yourself. You learn to speak to yourself with the same gentleness you've always offered others. You learn that your pain counts too, that your needs are as valid as anyone else's. Helping becomes chosen rather than compulsive. Before integration, helping was an automatic response. Someone in pain triggered your empathy and you had to help. No conscious choice involved. It was a reflex, a compulsion, maybe even an addiction. But after integration, helping is a conscious decision. You assess, do I have capacity? Will this actually help them? Am I the right person for this? Sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes it's no. Either way, you're choosing rather than reacting. And that makes all the difference. The most surprising gift is that you become more effective at helping others. When you're not depleted, you actually have more to give. When you're not overwhelmed, you can see solutions more clearly. When you're not enmeshed, you can offer perspective that actually serves. The bounded empath is infinitely more useful than the unbounded one. Not because they're trying harder, but because they're sustainable. They can show up consistently over time without burning out. They maintain their compassion because they protect it. They continue to care because they don't carry. Your relationships transform completely. The ones that were based on you being an emotional caretaker end. This is painful, but necessary, because those relationships were built on an unsustainable foundation. They required you to be less than whole. They needed your boundlessness, and when you become bounded, they can't survive. Let them go. Grieve them, but don't resurrect them. They belong to a version of you that was dying, not living. The relationships that survive become deeper and more genuine, because now you're showing up as your whole self, not just your pleasing self. You have needs, you have limits, you have bad days, you're human. And the people who love you get to love all of you, not just the parts that serve them. These relationships are characterized by reciprocity, mutual care, balanced, giving and receiving, shared vulnerability. This is what healthy connection actually looks like. And it's probably different from anything you've experienced before. There's a beautiful irony here. By becoming less available, you become more truly present. When you had no boundaries, you were everywhere and nowhere, physically present, but emotionally scattered across a dozen people's problems. Now when you choose to show up, you're actually there. Fully, completely, not with one foot out the door already anticipating the next person who needs you. Not half listening while managing your own depletion, but present. And that presence, that full-bodied attention, is more valuable than 1,000 hours of distracted empathy. The people in your life will feel this difference. They might not be able to articulate it, but they'll sense that when you're with them now, you're really with them. Not performing care, but genuinely caring. Not obligated to help, but choosing to help. The quality of your presence transforms because you're no longer depleted. You're no longer giving from an empty well. You're offering from overflow, and overflow has a completely different energy than depletion. You'll also find your tribe other empaths who have walked this path. Other sensitive souls who've met their monster and lived to tell about it. These connections are profound because they're built on mutual understanding. They don't need your empathy to be boundless. They celebrate your boundaries. They respect your limits. They understand that sometimes the most loving thing you can say is, "I don't have capacity for that right now." Being around people who get it is like finally breathing fully after a lifetime of holding your breath. The integrated self operates from what we might call empowered sensitivity. You're still deeply feeling. You haven't lost your empathic abilities. But now, you're wielding them consciously rather than being wielded by them. You choose what to absorb and what to deflect. You decide what's yours to carry and what needs to stay with its owner. You determine how much capacity you have and protect that capacity fiercely. This version of Carl Jung empath and personal development isn't about transcending your sensitivity or getting over your empathic nature. It's about honoring your sensitivity enough to protect it. It's about valuing your empathy enough to use it wisely. It's about respecting your own humanity enough to include yourself in your circle of compassion. The wisdom traditions remind us the privilege of a lifetime, is to become who you truly are. You're not becoming someone else through this process. You're becoming yourself, the self that contains both light and shadow, the self that can hold tenderness and strength, the self that can be open-hearted and boundaried. You're integrating all the parts you've split off: the anger you denied, the selfishness you repressed, the coldness you feared. And in integrating them, you're not becoming worse. You're becoming whole. Living from integration requires daily practice, not because you're broken, but because consciousness is a choice you make moment by moment. Each morning, you choose to remember that your energy is finite and precious. Each interaction, you choose to assess whether engagement serves or depletes. Each evening, you choose to release what you've absorbed that isn't yours. These aren't burdens. They're rituals of self-respect. Think of it like this: you wouldn't expect an athlete to maintain peak performance without daily training, proper nutrition, and adequate rest. Yet somehow, we expect empaths to maintain their gifts without any maintenance, without any protection, without any recovery time. Integration means recognizing that your empathic capacity is like a muscle. It needs to be used consciously, rested regularly, and protected from overuse. The daily practices aren't optional extras. They're how you sustain your wholeness over a lifetime instead of burning out repeatedly. The energetic hygiene becomes second nature. After difficult interactions, you have ways to cleanse yourself: taking a shower, going for a walk, shaking your body, doing breath work. Before entering challenging spaces, you protect yourself, visualizing boundaries, calling in your own energy, grounding in your body. During conversations, you stay conscious, asking yourself periodically, "Is this mine?" and releasing what isn't. These practices aren't paranoid, they're practical. They're how you maintain the wholeness you've worked so hard to achieve. You develop a new relationship with pain, both yours and others. You stop running from your own pain and start listening to it. Pain becomes information rather than enemy. It tells you where your boundaries have been violated, where your needs aren't being met, where your truth isn't being spoken. And instead of numbing it or projecting it onto others, you feel it. You let it move through you. You let it teach you. This is emotional maturity, not the absence of pain, but the conscious relationship with it. With others' pain, you learn what I call compassionate witnessing. You can be present to their suffering without taking it on. You can hold space without holding the weight. You can offer support without offering rescue. This is what people actually need from you: not someone to fix them or save them, but someone to see them, to witness their experience without trying to change it, to reflect their humanity back to them without absorbing their pain. This is the gift of the integrated empath: presence without fusion, connection without consumption. The monster phase from this vantage point reveals itself as exactly what it was: initiation. It was the death that preceded rebirth, the destruction that enabled reconstruction, the darkness that forced you to seek your own light. Without the monster phase, you would have continued sacrificing yourself on the altar of others' needs. You would have eventually disappeared entirely. The monster saved you. It enforced the boundaries you couldn't enforce. It protected the self you kept abandoning. It said no when you couldn't. Here's something profound to consider. The monster wasn't attacking you. It was attacking the false self, the persona, the performance of boundless empathy that was killing your authentic self. The monster was actually on your side the entire time. It just had terrible communication skills. It expressed protection through aggression. It showed love through boundaries. It demonstrated care through refusal. Once you understand this, you can stop fighting the monster and start thanking it. Not for its methods, but for its intention. It was trying to save your life the only way it knew how. Now you can say no, consciously. You can enforce your own boundaries with awareness rather than aggression. You can protect yourself without becoming hard. You can maintain your softness because you've claimed your strength. The empath and the monster aren't at war anymore. They're allies. The empath provides the compassion. The monster provides the boundaries. Together, they create something sustainable, something whole, something that can last a lifetime without burning out. The world needs this version of you. Not the self-sacrificing empath who enables dependency. Not the cold monster who wounds from pain. But the integrated being who can hold both, who can feel deeply and protect fiercely, who can love widely and choose wisely, who can give generously and receive graciously. This person can change the world one conscious interaction at a time. Not by saving everyone, but by showing everyone what wholeness looks like. Your sensitivity was never a curse. It was never something to overcome or something to fear. Your ability to feel deeply is a profound gift. But like any gift, it needs proper protection to flourish. The monster phase taught you how to protect it. The integration phase taught you how to use it consciously. Now you get to live it. Now you get to be it. The empath who includes themselves. The sensitive who maintains boundaries. The feeler who stays conscious. This is the completion of the journey. Not back to innocence, but forward into wisdom. Not back to boundlessness, but forward into conscious containment. Not back to who you were, but into who you've always been. Beneath the persona and beyond the shadow. Whole, human, integrated. Powerful in a way that serves rather than dominates. Soft in a way that sustains rather than depletes. Empathic in a way that includes everyone, even yourself. The transformation from empath to monster to integrated being isn't just personal healing, it's collective medicine. Because every person who does this work becomes a demonstration of what's possible. They become living proof that you can be sensitive in an insensitive world without being destroyed by it. They show others that wholeness is achievable, that sensitivity and strength aren't opposites, that empathy and boundaries can coexist, that the monster phase, painful as it is, leads somewhere beautiful if you're willing to do the work. And here's the ripple effect nobody talks about. When you heal this pattern in yourself, you change it for everyone around you. Your children, if you have them, won't inherit the pattern of boundless empathy leading to depletion. Your friends will see a new model of what empathy can look like, powerful and protected. Your community will witness someone who cares deeply but doesn't carry everything. You become a permission slip for other empaths to do their own integration work. Your healing isn't just personal. It's ancestral, it's communal, it's evolutionary. You're not just saving yourself, you're shifting the pattern for everyone who comes after you. So if you're reading this and you're in the middle of the darkness, if you're in the monster phase right now, feeling cold and cruel and terrified of what you're becoming, know this, you're not broken. You're breaking open. You're not losing yourself. You're finding yourself. The monster isn't the end of your story. It's the middle chapter, the initiation, the death that precedes rebirth. And on the other side of this darkness is a light that's actually yours. Not borrowed, not performed, yours. Let me speak directly to you wherever you are in this journey. If you're in the early stages, just beginning to feel that coldness creeping in, that growing resentment, that desire to stop caring, don't panic. Don't judge yourself. Don't try to force yourself back into boundless empathy. This is your psyche trying to protect you. Listen to what it's saying beneath the uncomfortable feelings. It's saying you need boundaries. You need rest. You need reciprocity. You need to matter too. If you're deep in the monster phase, feeling like you've lost all capacity for genuine connection, feeling guilty about your coldness, but unable to change it, know that you're in the chrysalis. It feels like death because parts of you are dying. The false self, the people-pleasing, the the compulsive caretaking. Let them die. Grieve them if you need to, but don't resurrect them. On the other side of this dissolution is a more authentic you. If you're in the integration phase, practicing boundaries and conscious empathy, but still feeling uncertain, still doubting whether you're doing it right, you are. There's no perfect way to integrate. It's messy. It's non-linear. Some days you'll feel whole. Some days you'll slip back into old patterns or overcorrect into coldness. That's not failure. That's learning. Be patient with yourself. The integration isn't about getting it right. It's about staying conscious through the process. The journey requires courage. It requires honesty. It requires willingness to feel everything you've been avoiding. But you've already shown that courage by reading this far. You've already demonstrated that honesty by recognizing yourself in these words. You've already proven that willingness by staying present to your own transformation. You have everything you need to complete this journey. The empath in you holds the capacity for deep feeling. The monster in you holds the capacity for fierce protection. And the integrated self that's emerging holds both. You're becoming whole, and wholeness, once achieved, is indestructible. Welcome home.